Hello everyone, welcome back to Coding with T. Today we are going to create the third section of phase 1, and in this section we are going to learn computed or derived state providers. So what is computed or derived state? As the name suggests, it is something, or typically in Riverpod it is a provider that is going to be generated or derived from other providers. So it is going to watch other providers. It can be one or more. We can call them base providers. It will listen or watch to those base providers and derived a new or computed value in a provider, and that provider is called derived provider from other providers. So today we are going to learn few examples, and by example you will be able to understand what exactly they are doing. So without wasting time, let's get started. As you can see, we are creating a complete crash course of Riverpod, and I'll make sure that you can get all the concepts of Riverpod from 1, which is the basics, then Riverpod 2, and all the features of Riverpod 3. So let's head towards today's tutorial, which is the 10th tutorial of our course. Okay, so we are inside our playlist, and you see we have the section 3 and the video 10. I've created two fields, computed providers and computed screen. So for the providers, first of all, let's create a simple state provider, and I'm going to name it numbers provider or simple number provider, and it is going to equal a state provider. And as you know, state provider, inside each provider we have a function. So we will create a function like this, and this state provider is going to return something which is a list of integer values. And as you know, we have the ref object, but if you do not want to use that ref object, you can simply add underscore, and instead of this function we can simply write fat arrows, because we only need to return one single line or a one single static list. So I've created a list of 5 integers. Now what is a computed or derived state? Let's say we want to sum all these providers and we want to display the sum on the user interface. Or in real example, let's say we have a cart and we want to total all the amount of the cart, and we want to show the grand total to the user on the user interface, but we do not want to again compute each and everything whenever there is change. Let's say cart item is updated, removed, deleted, or whatever is going on in the list. So same over here, we have a list. You can assume it a simple list or a cart list or whatever list it is. We want to make sure that whenever there is change in the list, our computed value should also be updated without worrying us to again recompute all the things. So for that, let's create a derived state or derived provider. So let's create a new variable. I'm going to name it sum provider, and we are again going to create a single provider, a simple provider. And as you know, all the providers have a function, and in this function we are definitely going to use the ref object because we need the reference to call the provider above. So what this provider is going to return, it is going to return the integer, which will be basically sum of the complete list we have at the top. So now in order to get all the values of that specific provider, we are going to, let's first create a list, and to get the list, we have to use reference dot watch. Why we are using watch over here? Because we want to make sure whenever there is change inside this provider, you see it is a list of type integer. So whenever there is change in this provider, we want to make sure we have the latest value. So we are going to call number provider or numbers provider, whatever you want to use. And over here, let's return the list dot, we have a method called fold. So it is going to fold all the values, sum one by one. So initial value is 0, and then combine, we have to use total, and the second value is the current number because it is a function. So again, use the fat arrow. So we will simply write total plus the current number, and that's it. So first of all, current number total will be 0 at the start, and n will be 1. It is going to add 0 plus 1, total will be 1 now, then so on. It will add all the values. So once we have the sum, we will return the sum value from this provider. And now if we go to the screen, okay, so I actually created providers in the computed screen, and now I move all the providers over here, and in the computed screen I simply created a consumer widget which is just going to display a sum. So we have the widget reference, and in the reference we have a simple scaffold, app bar, body, and a floating action button. So what floating action button is going to do, it is going to change the list, so that whenever the list is going to change, we want to display the total sum over here. So let's say we want to display a sum, and we know we have, for the sum or for the total amount of the cart, we have a specific provider. So let's say we have a sum inside ref.watch. Again, we are going to watch because we have to get the values from that specific provider. It is a sum provider. So now we have the sum value and you can simply print it like this. If you hover over the sum, you see we have the integer as a return value. Now we want to change the list, the actual list, and for that we have to use reference dot read because we only want to trigger it once, and we want to update the number provider because numbers are inside or the list is inside this number provider list. We will use the notifier dot state. If you see, the state is a list of integers, so use the state. We have to assign a list over here, but first let's get all the previous values of that state. So again, I have to call reference dot read, and whatever the value we have inside this state, we will get that in the list. And now we can simply call three dots and list. This will populate the old list values in a new list, and then we have just list dot length plus. So we just want to add a new value. So this is the old value or old items of the list, and this is simply a new item added in the list, and we assign to this specific state. This means that now the new list has been updated. Okay, now let's try to run the application and also make sure to in the main.dart change this to some string so that we can able to run this. Okay, so our application is running, and in the total you can see we have 15, which is the sum and automatically calculated. Now let's click on this plus icon and you see the values are again started updating based on the previous value. So let's recap it very quickly. If you see the computed provider, so this was the simple state provider which contains number of items in a list. This means that let's say we have a card, and add in this card we have few items, and now we want to calculate its total or the total amount of that card, and we want to display that on the screen to the user. So we created a new derived provider which is basically derived from this provider at the top. So using this provider, we are actually watching this. So whenever there is change inside this list, we want to make sure that we have a new updated sum on the screen. So if you go to the screen, you see we use the sum to display. So whenever there is change in it, we are simply displaying that change over here. But to trigger that change, we are using the reference dot read, and we want to update this state, which is the local list. We want to always update the list actual value plus the length of this with 1, and it is always going to increase in number, and the sum will remain up to date on the UI. Now, as you know, we also created to do model. So let me create another example of to do. Okay, I've created a state notifier provider. If you remember the video 7th of our playlist, we created this state notifier class which have different functions: add, remove, toggle, and we have the state notifier provider over here. So we are going to use this class. And again, if you want to see the to do model, so this is the to do model that we talked about. So we have already created and covered each and everything. If you're new, you can watch the previous videos. So I have just created the same to do list provider and also another provider which is filter text provider. Basically, it is going to get the text from the user interface or from the search text field. So we will use this to get the text from the user and try to filter all the items in the to do list. Okay, I have created a simple provider over here and I've named it filtered to do's provider, and it's a simple provider going to return a list of to do. But this list is not going to be a list which is over here. We're not going to return the actual list, rather we are going to create a copy of that list and we're going to name it filtered to do's provider. Means we will return filtered list with some specific cases. So let's say first of all we need to watch all these two providers. So we will get all the to do's over here using reference dot watch. Watch means again whenever there is change in that specific list, we want to make sure that this provider should get or return the values which are up to date. And as a provider, we are going to use the to do list provider we just created at the top, and same like this we have, let's name it filter provider, and we are going to use this provider over here. So if there is change inside this specific search or inside the list, we want to make sure that filtered items should be up to date. If nothing is inside the filter, if it is empty, we are simply going to return all the to do's. Else we are going to return the filter to do's, where each to do will check the each to do dot title lowercase contains whatever searched from the user side or the UI, and we will get the new list because to list is going to always return a new updated list. So we will return that list, and by this way we will have always up to date filter to do's. If there is any new to do entry over here, we will again get automatically updated. And if there is any change inside this provider as well, because we are watching them both, so if there are any change in both or any provider, we will have the latest filter to do's automatically. Now in the UI, I'm going to create a complete class just to save the time. Okay, so I've created a class, name it to do filter screen, and in that we have simply two reference. The first one is watching to filter to dos, because whenever we are going to display the to dos, we will not target the actual to do list. If you head back over here, you see the actual list is inside to do list provider, right? But we are returning filtered to dos provider. We are not returning this list. So the actual list will remain inside this, and we will use this derived provider to display all the to dos. And then again, notifier will, because we want to update the list, so update list will go for the main provider, because we want to update the main provider or the main list. And if there is any change in this list or in this search, the filtered will automatically be updated. So we have the notifier because we want to update this. And if you see inside this text field, we have the on change event, and whenever we have the new text, we will simply call reference.read and using filter text provider. So this is the text provider that we want to update. We'll use the notifier and state will have the new value. So whenever we're going to write anything in the text field, its on change will be triggered and it is going to update the state of filter text provider. And if we have the state updated over here, automatically this ref.watch will trigger and we will have the new value returned as a filter to dos list. And to display these to dos, the filter to dos, we have list view.builder and to dos.length, and then we are going to definitely get each to do and display it in the list tile. But again, you see we have a checkbox over here. If the to do value is completed, the checkbox will be checked and its on change will trigger notifier.toggle method. If you see the toggle method inside this notifier we created, so it will automatically toggle the state of that specific to do. We just have to pass the ID and definitely that ID will be toggled. We created all these functions classes in the previous tutorial of video 7. If you are again new, you can watch that. I'll drop the link in the description or on the right top corner. And at the end you can see we have the icon delete button, and we are again going to use this notifier, which is to do list provider, and we are going to use this remove method to remove that specific item. And one more thing to add to do in the list, let's create a floating action button. In the floating action button I've added icon button, and whenever this icon button is going to be pressed, we will simply add this text in the notifier.add method, which is going to again create a new to do and add that in the state will be updated automatically. Okay, let's run the application. Make sure to change this to do filter screen and rerun it again. Okay, so our application is running. You can see we have the search filter to dos as the app bar title, and currently we are searching anything, but because we do not have anything in the list, it's not working. So click on this plus icon and you can see we have a lot of lists. So this time let's try to search for anything that is not in the list. You can see all the items because all the text is same, so all the items are gone. Let's try to search for to do and again space item, but after this, because we do not have space, so text didn't match. So if we have anything being changed in the search, it is actually triggering that specific derived provider, which is the filtered provider in this case, and it is filtering or updating the state of our list. And you can see the specific checkbox are being checked. We can again delete them if we want. So by this way you will be able to use the drive states in any of your applications. And that's it for today's tutorial. I hope you learned something new. If you have any questions, you can ask me down below in the comments. And if you learned something new, please like the video, and if you're new to this channel, make sure to subscribe and hit the bell icon to get notified for all the upcoming videos. Thank you for watching and take care.